gentlemen, it is starting to get hot in this kitchen. I told all that wanted to know that this isn't social media. This is serious media. So here's a piece of advice for all those wishing to cover up corruption. If you can't stand the heat in this kitchen, don't leave the kitchen. You might as well leave the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your 8 o'clock edition of Black Belt The Voice. I am Gorman Bannister. I am Gorman Bannister. And this is called Black Belt's Kitchen. It'll be 40 minutes of heat. And let's see what happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, hi, how are you? This is October 1st, 2018, which means it's Monday evening. You know I'm Black Belt, The Voice. I am Gorman Bannister. I am Gorman Bannister. And as I said earlier, this is your 8 o'clock report. And this is the inaugural report on YouTube. We are starting to do it audio this way. Then soon we'll then go to visual. And then that is when I will really go berserk in righteousness. So, ladies and gentlemen, this 40 minutes, but of course, you know, this being the inaugural, edition, it may not last for 40 minutes, but then we'll see how we go. And what I would like for you to do, though, those of you that are listening and those of you that will make sure other people listen, I would like for you to also tell me how it goes afterwards. Give me your critique. Because after all, I am still your captain. I still submit to thee. Those of you who are generals and colonels, I submit to thee. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get right up on in it. I have a couple of things I want to say before we get to what's not in the news. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a criminal climate perpetuated by a criminal government. If it were not for a remnant of God's people still in the land, we go the way of Sodom and Gomorrah. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is, this is the worst government in the history of the Bahama land. The dreaded and even God-forsaken UBP were not this bad, but they were close. This is a government that didn't create criminality. Criminals came to government to collectively do criminal acts. Now, I don't want to hear about what the PLP did in 2012 to 2017, because I could then say what the FNM did in 2007 to 2012, and on we can go. We're not living in the past. We are in the here and the now. And if we're not careful with this criminal crew, we may not see the later. That's why we have to serve it hot in Black Belt's kitchen. There is, however, one thing that we've taken with us from the past to the present, and it's Marvin Dames. In 1997, he was helping drug dealers escape justice and documented for taking a $250,000 bribe. He was an assistant commissioner of police at the time. And look how he was rewarded for his criminal record. 20 years later, he's the Minister of National Security. A Nation for Sale 2.0. 20 years later, a documented assistant commissioner of police criminal helping drug dealers, warning them of an operation called Buzz Lightyear. An operation, ladies and gentlemen, that saw 3 squadrons of drug enforcement in the bushes in the Family Island surveilling for 1 week. 8-hour shifts. 7 of them on 8-hour shifts. The monetary cost of that astronomical for the U.S. government, but they do not go on wasted missions. They watched the gentleman bring the drugs to the boat for 1 week. Back and forth, they watched them. Then when they were ready to nab them as they were getting ready to go in the boat out to their place of business, their plan was to nab them the minute they went to the 12-mile limit and keep them and keep stepping with them into the United States. But on that night, the drug dealers didn't show up. And that was the start of the police no longer knowing in full what the DEA operations were about here in the country. Now, 20 years later, Marvin Dames, the same assistant commissioner of police, was rewarded for his criminal act. And now he's the Minister of National Security. A Nation for Sale 2.0. Now, while it seems that Bahamians are quick to forget, or they let corruption have a pass, the U.S. government doesn't. And so now they've bypassed the Ministry of National Security because of obvious trust factors and handle matters in the Bahamas as they wish. So, now let's look at some other things in the kitchen to serve those who are thirsty for corruption. Let's talk about what's not in the news. But let me say this before I get there. Hey, Carl Bethel. Now, yes, Carl, I spoke to you all last week, all Sunday. I had a conversation with you on various things. But Carl, it was not my intention to speak to you again tonight. But yes, Carl, I'm lying. It was my intention to speak to you again tonight. You know why, Carl? Because I don't appreciate you spending cabinet days other than in cabinet other places. I don't like it. Because when you do that, Carl, when you've done that, especially last Tuesday, you were up to no good. You were up to no good. You had your compass and you was trying to direct traffic. And obviously you might have succeeded, it seems. Only problem is you're riding in a car that the wall is headed for. Not you headed into the wall is headed into you. So you couldn't, even if you press brakes, it ain't gonna stop. So I got to ask you another question, Carl. I got to ask you this. And I could have asked you this yesterday if I wanted to, but I didn't want to inundate you with so many things. See, because you know, Carl, I'm going to take my time to get this point across because it is a critical point that is something that the public has been suspicious of for years. It is something that the public doesn't think is fair. It is something that should be done when it is absolutely necessary and not done to satisfy some political agenda. People don't like it. Okay, so I'm going to take my time with it, Carl, so that when it all boils down and I serve it out of Black Belt's kitchen, it's going to satisfy who it serves. Now, I don't believe, Carl, in giving meals to people who don't deserve them. I don't believe in giving meals to people who might tell me, don't you dare bring no meal to me. But when I serve it up and bring it to them, they got to eat it. So I'm going to take my time with this, Carl, but I'm going to ask you this particular question. Carl, I need you to check on something for me. I need you to check on something for me, Carl. Let me tell you what I need to check on. I need you to check, right? Now, because you are an officer, Carl, of the court, and as the Attorney General, you just happen to be the highest officer in the land of the court. In fact, Carl, you are the chief law officer, period. Okay? That doesn't mean that you follow the drunk driving laws, but that was, I mean, that's small things. But the point I want to ask you, Carl, is as an officer of the court, Carl, right? And I don't want you to get distracted. Can you find out for me if that was Justice Indra Charles, the one who's overseeing the Shane Gibson case? If that was Justice Indra Charles at immigration, along with her driver, before that court matter on Friday concerning the gagging in the Shane Gibson case, could you find out for me? Because I don't know what she looks like. I hear she's a very competent judge. I hear that. That's what I heard. I don't know if that means competent as opposed to others who are not, but I heard that she's a very competent judge. So I don't know her. But you do. You're an officer of the court. I need you to find out for me, Carl, for my own personal reasons and just for public knowledge. If Justice Indra Charles was at immigration on Friday around about 9 o'clock, around those people in immigration who interview people, check that for me, Carl. I'll appreciate that. I'd appreciate that. And Carl, do me a favor. After you checked it, report back to me. Yeah, Carl, I want you to report back to me on that. You didn't report to me when you was up there on Tuesday, when you were up there at Cabinet and then other places on Tuesday. You didn't report that. I think you should have reported it though, Carl, because you are an officer of the court. I feel like you should have reported it. You didn't do it. So now I'm going to give you this opportunity to report this. Do that, Carl. That's your assignment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a couple of questions. Just a couple of questions that I want to, moving right along into what's not in the news. We're going to keep moving along, ladies and gentlemen. And I have a couple of questions. And it's about WTO. That's the first question. Ladies and gentlemen, what is it going to take? Is it going to take a ton of bricks to fall on our heads to get the message? President Trump said to the world, while addressing the United Nations, that America would not be joining WTO. Did you hear him say that? The reason why I ask is because this government is acting like they never heard it. And aren't they moving like you shouldn't hear it either? So if that is what Trump means, why would we be headed full speed into WTO before December 2019? When Trump said America will be out by the same date, why would we be headed in before December 2019 when Trump said that America will be out of it by the same date? In fact, Trump went as far as to say that he plans on shutting WTO down around the world. Now, that might be a little far-fetched, but one thing we know, we're closer to around their world than anybody else's. So, if he plans on shutting it down by 2019, and we're claiming that we're going in by December 2019, with America as our tourism engine and protectorate from other nations, what would automatically happen if we were to stick to the direction we are headed in? Won't pre-clearance travel be automatically removed from the airports because of the vast number of people coming to our shores? And that's for starters. And ladies and gentlemen, that shouldn't be looked at as fear-mongering or be used as a tool or a threat toward us, because the Americans don't have to threaten us. They only do that when they feel like threatening somebody. But they don't have to threaten. But the fact of the matter is, free movement of labor in and through the country, just manpower alone, customs here couldn't handle that. They would have to go into the United States. And besides for having to go into the United States because we wouldn't have the manpower nor the facility here to handle it, the fact of the matter is, so many people will be coming across here from so many different places en route from here to there to the next and next to the next, that for their own safety and probably ours, you would then have to go into clearance in the United States. And I don't know if you've ever been into international clearance in the United States. For God's sake, don't be needing a connecting flight. Because when you get there, you go into the pool of the world. You could very easily be amongst thousands of people. And with the security of TSA, the way that it is now, you would miss your connecting flight. And whose fault would that be? So that's for starters. That's just for starters. Don't you think that based on that alone, that you should check Brent to find out what this first march to nowhere is all about? Don't you agree that Brent has to be publishing something financial before WTO is officially shut down by America? See, because ladies and gentlemen, you have to recognize something. And it seems like the public plus the official opposition seems to finally be getting into the subject of the elusive Bigfoot, the elusive Sasquatch. Where are they? Where are they? I'm saying people are now starting to ask, who are negotiating these deals for us? I've never been in doubt who it's been. The only thing that I have been concerned about is the fact that nobody was asking. Nobody asked where the Ministry of Investments disappeared to, or the minister for that matter. But when you look at two particular things that are Ministry of Investment items, financial services items, OBAN is taking something from us, the people. WTO is putting us into something for someone and not us. So at some point, I'm thinking that you all just got to call it what it is. Straight out, Brent is the negotiator of all these things, and the things that he's doing is serving his interests. It's serving it. And he's got House Nigger Menace MC right there. All he's doing is announcing how it go. So, as far as WTO is concerned, why don't you ask Brent, why are you marching us so quickly into nowhere when we know that we have to at least follow the movements of America? We're not moving with WTO in caution. We're being reminded that America has said what it has said. No, we're moving as if we don't care what America said. So besides for free clearance, you recognize that our shipping lanes will be closed down because America will be have to manning the 12-mile limits, not knowing who's coming in and through here. Now, you know that Brent and his crew are the kings of the shipping lanes. You believe that Brent is not aware that WTO will cause that? There's something else, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you have to watch how he plays his cards. There's something that they are trying to get done under the WTO December 2019 wire. Because if they get it in here before the foot go down on WTO, It's here. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what you have to look at. What is it that they're trying to get in here before the foot of no go for WTO comes down on all of those who are subsidized by America? And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have another question. Do you have a watch handy? A watch. And why do you need a watch? Because it looks like, to me, Speaker Moultrie is trying to bust out of that disguise and return to being Pinball Moultrie all over again. And why do I say that? Because after an exchange between MP Cooper and FNM, I don't know what to call him, Turnquest? FNM Deputy Prime Minister Turnquest? After an exchange between the two of them, guess what Moultrie did? He waited till they finished, didn't interrupt them. He went to the rule book to tell both to read a section about questions. But either he thought he was being slick or just showing how intellectually dishonest he is. Because in order not to seem to blame anyone, he didn't read the rule. But guess what? While he was issuing an admonition, he kept looking at MP Cooper. So what are we supposed to think of that? Isn't that the start of that old behavior, that old pinball, cracked head, crackpot behavior of Speaker Moultrie? And then he tried to interrupt the member for Angleton in her contribution to rule on some, gotten the sentence out of her mouth yet. I mean, that's what happened. He interrupted. He was kind. He wasn't vitriolic and nasty with venom and trying to take out on Hannah Martin what he couldn't dare take out on his wife. Even if he didn't have his apron on, he couldn't do it at home. He interrupted her, the member for Angleton, in her contribution to rule on something that she hadn't even gotten the sentence out of her mouth yet. Now, isn't that how it was with Moultrie when he was acting like a pinball not too long ago? So, what is it we should be doing now? You know what you should be doing right now? Let me tell you what you should be doing right now. Find a watch here. Find a watch. Find a watch so that you will know the date and the time when the real crackpot, crackhead, pinball Moultrie returns. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on. How we doing? We doing okay? Now, has anyone noticed that the Guardian's Juan McCartney, he just can't address a topic that is strictly an F&M mess without broadening the topic to bring the PLP in and then lessen the blow on the F&M. Today, McCartney was talking about Leonard Sands resigning from the Bahamas Contractors Association and the F&M, but he broadened the subject by asking whether political parties can be trusted not to work behind the scenes to bend the party to the wishes of the leadership. Yes, that's what he did. The subject he was started out talking about Leonard Sands resigning from the Bahamas Contractors Association and the F&M. That's what he talked about. He said that's how he started the show. We want to talk about the F&M today. But he broadened the subject. That's him. That's that guile. He broadened the subject by asking whether political parties can be trusted not to work behind the scenes to bend the party to the wishes of the leadership. Now, ladies and gentlemen, tell me something. What does that have to do with the F&M mess? What does that have to do with the FNMS? Then, that sick child in an adult body claimed to be giving Leonard Sands some advice on what to expect now that he has gone against the establishment. Could you imagine that? McCartney, that sick child in an adult body, claimed to be giving Leonard Sands some advice on what to expect now that he has gone against the establishment. McCartney said, they'll call Sands a sissy. McCartney said to Sands, they'll call him a substance abuser. McCartney said to Sands that they'll call him an alcoholic. Now, why would McCartney advise Sands that this is what they'll say about him just because those are the jackets that everyone knows McCartney wears? Why? Why would he suggest that since he is going against the establishment, Sands that is, that they'll be calling Sands a sissy, they'll be calling Sands a substance abuser, they'll be calling Sands an alcoholic? Why would McCartney suggest that that's what they would be calling him? Why? Just because that's the jackets that everyone knows McCartney wears? See, this guy is a tortured soul. And he wears his decadence on his sleeve. When he's not giggling inappropriately, he's pouring out his problems and bad character on other people when it's him that has these problems. But, make no mistake about it, he is the chief F&M caretaker in the media. Bar none. Bar none. He's the one who appears to tear them apart initially, but only enough to be able to patch them back up before the show is over. Watch him carefully. See, ladies and gentlemen, I keep saying to you, and I want this to be something that you continue to consider. They don't want the F&M to fail. They just want them to behave. And they want them to behave, even if it means getting rid of Menace. So be it. They just don't want the F&M to fail. They don't mind getting rid of Menace. They don't want the F&M to fail. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can go ahead and we can move on then, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, now, since McCartney brought the PLP into that discussion where they had no purpose in it because the discussion was supposed to be the F&M mess, but he brought it to bring in the PLP. Since he talked about the PLP, I think that I can, and since I can and I do, lash the PLP when I feel compelled to do so, I could commend them also when I feel compelled to do so. And for as far as I'm concerned, they had a good week last week in Parliament, and it seems they had a better one on the weekend. In Parliament, they showed where the government is anything but fiscally responsible on this joke bill of fiscal responsibility that the government brought. You know, the government has to be the most macabre crew of individuals with, you know, a morbid sense of humor. I mean, they must go around funeral homes when they want to chuckle. That is how morbid and macabre their character is. They brought a fiscal responsibility bill to the House. No responsibility. So, in Parliament, the PLP showed where the government is anything but fiscally responsible. And they used the fact that the consolidated fund has given out no report. The consolidated fund where everything is since the F&M took office. And they also used the purchasing, or leasing I should say, of the Grand Larceny Hotel, as I call it, in Grand Bahama. I say leasing because, whether you realize it or not, they took out a mortgage. So until it's paid off, Ching Chong, Sally Wong, Harry Fong, Bruce Lee, Bruce Lai, Bruce Hai, and Charlie Chan still are the landlords. Likewise, they made us, the public, aware that the Public Accounts Committee has not been given any of the information from the Ministry of Finance, nor the Ministry of Works concerning school contracts. School contracts, so that means two sets of schools contracts now. But that doesn't matter if they get the second one, because the first one will stamp them criminals. That automatically makes the government has something to hide. But the fact is that all the scandals tied up in those school contracts is too much to hide. Though they all start with Hubert Minnis. Then I understand with the PLP this weekend in Grand Bahama, they put their aspirants in place to vie for being candidates for the PLP. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this to you. When persons put their money up to maybe become a candidate, that speaks to the hope of a real alternative. But let me go to the part though that I am proficient in. Proficient. Efficient. Proficient in. And that is the war zone. Now, but as far as being in the war zone, where there are no conventions of war with this particular criminal government, the PLP needs to recognize this. Because the criminal FNM is so corrupt that they can't answer your questions nor deny what you say, help them along and tell them what you understand they did. And either they'll say it's not true and then have to produce the truth, or they'll have to sit in silence and hope you don't start lying on them. Ladies and gentlemen, that is political warfare 101. When they don't want to tell you what happened, you tell them, and when they say to you it's not true, then you tell them, okay, we'll produce the truth. And if they don't say they don't have to produce no truth, then you have to let that stand or get a little bit more creative. They'll either have to produce the truth, be in trouble, or live with the creativity. That is politics 101. And ladies and gentlemen, finally, for tonight, let us talk about Renwood Wells. Renwood Wells. So I see where Renwood Wells has. I saw it coming, but now it looks like it's in full flight now. So I see where Renwood Wells has become Minnis's attack and response dog. The two. He bites your ass, then talk to you too. A little bit of teeth in between, but what that got to do with anything? He vehemently denied any time off while sightseeing in New York City, and one of the stops being the United Nations. I was just thinking, I grew up in New York City. I could imagine if Renwood Wells had been in New York City, and because the United Nations is down on the east side, around about 50-something street, on the east side, though, by the East Side River. I could imagine that if Renwood Wells was in New York back, even halfway in between in my day, and he would have gone on Times Square, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you would have heard of Renwood Wells running ball naked through Times Square, for as happy as he was to be in New York, he would have let the gangsters strip him, the hoes rob him, and the sissies grind him. All because of the fact that he was in New York and he was at Times Square. But thank God for Times Square, Rudy Giuliani cleaned it up. Because to have Renwood Wells, that black ass running down, that greasy ass running, and they claim he could run, right? With that greasy ass running up and down, right? Acting as if he was a flaming faggot. Because you know how Bahamians go when they go away, right? They take on a different persona altogether. He acted like a damn flaming faggot. Imagine what would have been happening. I'm telling you what happened. The gangsters would have stripped him, pickpockets stripped him, right? Okay? The hoes would have laughed at him, and the sissies would have poked him quick while he was running. That's New York. But you see, this is what I want to say about Renwood Wells in this day and time. Renwood Wells had a lot to say to defend the Bahamian delegation. He had a lot to say. So I want him to answer me this. What I need him to be, and he was vehement about it. Vehement! He was vehement about it. About them being there. So, but what I want Renwood Wells to do for me, right? Number one, what he got to do is stop wearing this little child's shirt, right? And some old man's tie. Because it don't look good. I mean, you know, to have a shirt collar, you know, it doesn't really look like, you know, it's like a SAC uniform or R.M. Bailey uniform shirt. You know, it's a little ridiculous. But anyhow, what I need Renwood Wells to be so vehement about answering is, listen now, be careful, Renwood, how you answer. I want him to be vehement about answering whether he had adjoining rooms with anyone that would cause menace to come to his room to then go into the adjoining room. I say it again. Renwood, answer this. Renwood, did you have any adjoining room with anyone else that would allow menace to come to your room, then to go into the adjoining room? Tell him to be vehement about that. Tell Renwood Wells to be vehement about that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Black Belt The Voice. I am Gorman Bannister. And this has been our first time in Black Belt's kitchen. How did we serve the meals, ladies and gentlemen, is what I would like to know from you. It is 8 o'clock report. Ladies and gentlemen, this is October 1st, 2018. This is Black Belt The Voice. I am Gorman Bannister. Good evening.